when you listen to the On Target album, when you listen to that record, for me, it always baffled me why that album didn't do better than it did, and why it took so long for another album to come out. Essentially, because I
Well,
thought
I mean, it was, I had the power players behind me. I mean, I had a record deal with Warner Brothers. I had Howard Kaufman manage me, who had White Snake and Heart, and Stevie Nicks. I was doing demos at Stevie's house. I had every power player imaginable behind me. But when the cycle changes, literally 90 days after release, I was told to go home. We're dropping you. And it was like being shot in the face. It was like, what happened? I mean, I wasn't aware. I knew of Mother Love Bone. I knew of the passed away singer's girlfriend. I knew her at a media place in Hollywood. I knew of them, and I had met Gossard and the guys from Pearl Jam after, and they were searching for players. They had come to Hollywood and actually tried to steal my drummer. And he's like, what do you call them? They're like, Pearl Jam. He goes, that's a dumb name. And he's like, no, man, I'm cool. Bangalore is really kicking butt. And we had done some, I'd say B-plus touring. And we were planning to kick off Asia and Europe with Whitesnake on Slip of the Tongue. That was where we were going. But then, I mean, as soon as they turned the lights off, it was over. But the single Loaded Gun was the most added to radio in years. I mean, I remember walking to the office and said, hey, I got a hit, son. Denny Rosenkrantz, who signed Santana. And I hated the song and kind of took it as a corporate thing to put it on the record. And I had Jared Leto as one of the actors in the video. I mean, I didn't know who he was. Now he's a superstar. But when you get 144 stations add you on Radio Day, that's a pretty good indication you're onto something. But well, all that said, a little band called Nirvana had shipped 600,000 copies the same day I did. And were added to like 3 times that. And the shift was unbelievable. And then I think it was 2 weeks later, we were light rotation and they had conquered all radio.
Yeah.
It was like, I remember after we were dropped, standing in the kitchen literally with Piercy, Janie Lane, and a bunch of guys, barbecue, and all of us looking at each other going, what do we do now? I mean, it was like nobody wanted to even talk to us. Nobody would take our calls. It was over, man. And you're right, the record, but what the phenomenon was, I was told by the corporate goons with their ties on that my life was over. But what I didn't know is that across the pond, that grunge had not made a move yet. It took a couple of years to follow us. But Bangalore Choir in the UK and in Europe was stomping. It was kicking ass. I didn't know that. I was told it was dead. So hence the reason why everybody knows, about these songs. And then playing Firefest in 2010, I had people literally say, I've waited 19 years to see this. Where have you been? And I'm like, what? I mean, it was a hit record. I had no idea. So, you learn, that's how this business is. It's one man's word doesn't mean law, and blah, blah. Here we are,
Yeah. It's funny. One of the things that I had talked about on my show, actually, in regards to another band, is what the market was like outside of the U.S., right? And the Japanese market, the European market, when all that happened. And it was funny because Giles, for those that don't know, Giles Lavery, who's the A&R guy at Brave Words Records, which is where the album came, the label that released the album, he made a comment that, he's not from the States, but he made a comment and just said it's amazing how, like, this kind of music just died overnight. And it literally, that's literally what happened. It just died overnight. And I remember getting into this kind of music in like 92, 93. I was a kid. I was just getting into high school. And I was getting into this stuff. And all of a sudden, I went to the record store one day, and all these like CDs and cassettes of these bands that I really loved were like half off. And it was because they were trying to get rid of it all to make way for Nirvana and Pearl Jam. That's what happened.
Well, the thing is the weird thing about the United States, and I firmly believe is here today, gone later today. It's a fashionable mentality about rock and roll or any kind of entertainment.
Hmm.
The cool thing about the European market, Asian stuff, is that you can be a well-known artist and throw out a few stinker records, but the loyalty, the following doesn't die with it.
Hmm.
Okay, you're going to play your classics that they know and stuff, but even if you throw out a few stinking records, they're still going to come and support you. There's a different mentality of legion of followers over here than in the United States. What I've managed to do with Rapid Fire Succession is reawakened the monster because I mean Bullet Train was number one at like 97 for in Baltimore for 6 weeks straight.
Hmm.
I haven't had this kind of radio attention for 30 years, sir. And all over the world, radio has embraced this record, which frankly, a lot of the stations would get those other records you talked about and
Hmm.
put me in a light ad and play it for 1 week and then ghost it. It was crickets. But
Yeah.
this thing just continues to build and I'm just blown away. I mean, people are actually calling me that I was emailing a million times to play my record going, man, this thing is moving, blah, 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 blah. So I'm happy to see that transition. But you're right. I remember the darkness. I remember, so Stone Temple Pilots walking out of my apartment in West Hollywood and seeing their second album, number one at Billboard the day it was released, and posters all over Tower Record. You couldn't even see inside the building.
Yeah.
I mean, it
Yeah.
was, yeah. I mean, I saw Soundgarden, when their first record came out at the Palace. Yeah, this guy's amazing. Who is this singer? It looks like Jesus Christ. Oh my God.
Yep.
But then I saw on the other side, there was Pantera ripping the roof off the same place going, wow, metal's still alive. But, that whole transition, I knew in my heart that this can't last. This is just too quick. And I gave it about 5 years and I was pretty accurate. What are there survivors of the singers, sadly, in that business? We got Anthony Kiedis and Eddie Vedder. They're still around, but everybody else is dead.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that we committed self-suicide. We shot ourselves in the head, dyeing our hair blonde, wearing the clothes and all that giant stages and Marty Callner production videos and 50 chicks in the dressing room and this pretend lifestyle that your average person on the universe cannot identify with a guy that can click his fingers and I Dream of Jeannie. And then you get a guy from Seattle with a flannel shirt that hasn't had a bath for 2 weeks, who has no food, talking about how miserable his life is. That was a cultural change because there was a lot of single parent homes that were coming into the fore and kids identified with what he was talking about. That's what it was. We killed ourselves off. We kind of deserved it. Because every
Yeah.
band had that big special ballad. You had to have the power ballad. There is this love. Everybody, talk dirty to me. All those things that were going on for 8 years, nonstop. People burned out, and I believe it was self-inflicted in some ways. It wasn't about the music. It was about how big the stage was and how many lights were there, and
Yeah.
the guys that were producing that stuff were making way more money than the bands. I mean, it was insane.
Yeah. It was definitely a switch because I really never got into the grunge stuff was okay. Like for me, the band that I really liked that came out of that scene, which I didn't really think they sounded like as much of a grunge band, was Alice in Chains. They were just a little bit of
Oh,
a
me
different.
too. Bingo.
Yeah. Yeah. That
Bingo.
of that crop of bands. And it's very sad what happened to Lane Staley and what happened with him and him dying and everything like that. But I just remember hearing them, and there was so much more to their music. Jerry Cantrell's guitar playing, so much more to that stuff. And I always liked that. I actually still love that band. The other ones were, not a huge fan, but you're right about that change because I didn't have a single parent household, but I knew a lot of kids in high school that did. and a lot of them identified, with that music. Like for example, we used to have this local thing here in Cleveland. It was called the Freenet, and you could chat with people locally. Some people could. That was like the first version of the internet, and a lot of people that were in high school that were on there identified with the exact same thing you just referenced, and they were huge fans of those bands, whereas I wasn't. Not because I hated them. I just got into this style of music and heavy metal probably before that, and it was one of those things where I never really fell into that at all.
Yeah, you were, and we were all outcasts, and you probably were too. I mean,
Yeah.
because it's a stylist kind of thing. I mean, guys like me were called dirt heads. I mean, it was just weird. I mean, I still have anxiety about those days. I get it now that I've matured musically. My wife and my stepsons follow Korn and Slipknot, and they're huge fans of that era. So I'm exposed to that music in the background of my household, and I get it. And as a singer, if you listen to Lane or Chris Cornell, I mean, give me a break. I mean, I can't do that stuff. I mean, when Alice in Chains released Dirt, how far? There's no more than perfection is the only word that pops into mind. And that record was legendary. To this day, I could probably recite the Rooster and the River lyrics to you. I mean, it was just, what in the hell is this? I played it until I wore it out.
Yeah.
But as you say, there was like the hair metal scene. All of a sudden, you got all these spin-off bands that are following that. Let's go where the signings are. And a lot of bands that didn't have that realism that AIC had or Soundgarden had, and they really didn't reinvent the wheel. They were playing Tony Iommi riffs, with a darker lyric. And I also think the drug culture had changed. We went from cocaine, staying up all night, to heroin.
Yeah.
And a lot of kids were playing with that game. And then they identified with, man, I'm a junkie. He's talking about me. Somebody understands me. So, it's all an identity thing, I think, especially in America. They don't really get off on the big hair, big party bands here in Europe. It's if you're real, they're with you.
Yeah.
They know if you're fake pulling it. You know what I mean? They know if it's a real rock and roll band.
Sure. Hey, it's Tony here from the Metal Command Show. I want to thank you for watching this portion of the program. Since 1998, I have hosted the show, which started off as a radio program and is now into the podcast format. So I want to thank you for watching and or listening. And if you want to support the program, hit the subscribe button, hit that little bell to be notified anytime I do post any content. A lot of you have been supporting the show and really, really helping this show grow, and I cannot do it without all of you. So with that said, thanks for watching. Stay metal.